And now, live from Level 5 Productions on the island of Milleronia, it's the Larry Miller Show. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and everyone who loves Old Spice. Hi, folks, and welcome back to the Larry Miller Show. I'm Larry Miller, but in a way, aren't we all? And, you know, it does make me feel so good to hear that theme every week, and I hope you're the same way. We'll never change that. I don't know why shows change their themes. I don't. And by the way, we're not on Milleronia today. We are back on the mainland, and the reason for that was Mother's Day, which we just passed. I'll tell you about that in a little bit. But boy, that music, they get better every week, and I know that seems impossible, but it's true. They get better every week. And that's, of course, the Rodney Wallace Orchestra and the Martha Klein Dancers, featuring boy tenor Mike Uhas, asking the musical question, if it's our favorite bar, shouldn't we already know how much a drink is? First of all, no. Good question, Mike. Smart question. Interesting question. But no. Remember, the question is, if it's your favorite bar, shouldn't you already know how much a drink is? I don't think so, because think of it this way. If it's your favorite bar, that means you're in there a lot. And that means you order drinks a lot. And that means they're probably running a tab for you, and that's the key. A long tab. Never mind how much a drink is, they probably carry you out when the time comes and just bill you twice a year. And that's because they like you and you like them. The truth is, Mike, if you knew how much each drink was after living like that, I'd say it was time for you to find a new place. But here's the interesting thing. Colonel Jeff and I just had a discussion before we went on the air here, and the idea was, Jeff had said, wouldn't we know how much a drink was? I mean, no matter how wiped out or blotto you get, wouldn't we have at least a ballpark sense of how much a drink is in a place, especially our favorite place? Well, and then I said in return, only if you're younger. I think we'd know exactly how much a drink was, and you too, if you're younger. If you've just started going to bars and started to pick out the bars you like. Well, if you're 21 years old, which of course is when you're legal to drink, neither you nor I ever had a drink when we were less than 21. Well, okay, we did, but the point is that if you go into a place when you're in your 20s and you're just starting to work at a regular job, you know what? You need to know how much a drink is, because you probably can't afford to get, blotto. You probably can't afford to be 3 sheets to the wind, even in a relaxed place, which is my way of putting even in a dive. You know, you really need to know. I remember when we started as comics at the comic strip in New York. Now, for me, this was, 1977 or 78. And you know what, folks? We knew, because this was a new comedy club in New York, and it was in Manhattan. You're there in the heart of Manhattan, and drinks there, though, were $2.50 each. Every drink was the same. So in the club, when a customer came in, whatever they order, it was $2.50. It doesn't matter, bottle of beer or gin Ricky, whatever that is. That just popped into my head. Or a bourbon and soda or something, or a shot of scotch. Everything was $2.50. We thought that was a lot. I remember the other comics and I thought, holy mackerel. And we drank for free there, by the way. That was part of what it meant to be a comic. Well, it certainly was for me and all the other comics. We could drink for free. But we thought, wow, $2.50 a drink. That's a lot. Well, as you know, no, it's not. Not anymore. Maybe it was. Maybe that was just our kids' heads thinking that way. But boy, oh boy, nothing is $2.50 a drink anymore. I didn't even know. $5.50, $8.50, $12.50. Depends where you go, I guess. But you know what, Mike? Good question. And Mike's question was, if it's our favorite bar, shouldn't we already know how much a drink is? No, Mike, I don't think you should. Good question, though. Smart. And I also want to tell you, the orchestra this week was led by Rodney Wallace, who's a friend of ours, who's an old friend. He's one of our favorite fans. He's Australian. He's from Australia. And Rodney deserves to have his name mentioned. We've already done it a couple of times, but he's the guy with the Nominum Quid Geminis tattoo on his arm. And you know what? That's worth mentioning. In case you don't know, the Larry Miller Drinking Society has a motto that came out of real life for me. When I would finish a job on the road, whether I was there for one night or 2 or 10, I would always go back to the hotel. I'd call home, and I'd be coming home the next day, and I would, after taking my suit off for the big show, I would put on some comfy clothes and take my book downstairs to the hotel bar. It was often late, and it was off, 12, 12:30, 1:45. By the time you get home meaning the hotel. Funny, I just said home there. Well, that's what it is when you're on the road a lot. That's your home. But I would go down to that bar, and I would always say the same thing. I was glad to be done, and I felt good, and I was going to read a little in the bar there. They were about to close anyway at 1 in the morning or 1:30 or something like that. And I would always order a whiskey drink, usually Jameson's or might have been Jack Daniels. But I would always say, and make it a double, if you please. And folks, I'm telling you, every single time I would get that drink back, and there was no one in the bar. There was maybe 1 or 2 other people. It was pretty late. It was me and my book sitting at the bar. That drink came, and it wasn't what you'd call a double. It wasn't what I would call a double. The reason you get a double is because it makes you feel like a grown-up. It makes you feel like a man has just ordered a drink. And a man wants to drink what looks like a man's drink, what feels like it when you pick it up in the glass. And it never did. And that's the whole reason I was doing it anyway, to say, come on, let's have a drink that looks and feels like a drink. And once or twice, with a joking manner, I would say to the bartender, hey, let's be honest, you call that a double? I mean, what was it, just 2 exact shots you put in there? Because that's not a double to me. Let's define what you and I will think of as a double for my one night in here. And it wasn't 2 shots that, were just that you could run a finger across the top of. And so when I started doing the show, and Colonel Jeff and I met, and that was when Dr. Chris was still on staff with us on our show. And I said, let's find out what the Latin is for that. You call that a double? Let's get that in Latin. And we could go out on the air and tell people, come on, send it in. Somebody out there speaks Latin and is good at it. And we want to know, so that we put it on the card, on the Larry Miller Drinking Society card. Make that our motto. And Latin is such an interesting language. That's the right word for it, isn't it? Interesting. I mean, I don't speak Latin, but there are so many. As much as they drank in ancient Rome, they didn't have phrases like that. You call that a double? Because right after that, they'd probably slice your head off. But we got the one we liked, which was Nominum Quid Geminis, which is Latin for you call that a double? And Rodney Wallace in Australia was cool enough to have that tattooed on his arm. And Rodney, on behalf of Colonel Jeff and Dr. Chris and myself, I hope that every so often you can show that to a woman and she digs it. I'm hoping that, you know what? She says, that's pretty cool. What does it mean? And you can say to her, it means you're coming to my place. She might already be in your place. Anyway, folks, you know what? We have great fans, and thank you guys for being our fans. And by Amazon and PayPal and my book. Amazon's still the greatest company in the world, folks. They are a sponsor of ours, and they are the greatest company because they do 3 things no other company does or can do. Number 1, whatever you want, they'll get it for you. Just order anything in the world you can think of, they'll get it for you. Number 2, they already have it. They don't have to go out. They don't have to have it mailed in. They don't have to make it. You know, they have it in a gigantic warehouse where Indiana Jones put the Ark of the Covenant at the end of the first movie. That thing that looks like a mile long and a mile wide and a mile high, and the government puts all the stuff they don't know what to do with in there. So they have the giant warehouse. They already have everything you can imagine. And number 3, this is the most important part of what Amazon does. They send us a percentage of whatever you order. So whatever you want, whatever you can imagine, whatever you order then from them, Colonel Jeff and I here at the show get a percentage whatever you order. And we put that money in cash right into our strong box where we're saving enough for our next big fancy fried chicken dinner with 2 drinks beforehand in a different place. And so thank you in advance. And you know what? Don't go to Amazon yourself. Don't do that. Don't turn your computer on and go to Amazon. You could do that, but that would be silly. That would be a waste of your time. Don't do something where you're doing the work. Let us do the work for you. You go to our website, Larry Miller podcast. Shouldn't I know this at this point? No, I have a website called LarryMillerHumor.com. But our website on the show here is LarryMillerPodcast.com. Who's on the mountain, Tom Mix? Still makes me laugh. That's the way we sound too often, all of us, when we're leaving our favorite bar where we don't know what the drinks cost. In any case, you go to our website. We have a banner that says Amazon. You click that, then go take a nap. Go sit yourself down in your favorite big lazy boy chair and put a magazine over your head and rock it back and pull that big stick on the side of the chair and go to sleep, because we'll take you to Amazon. You click our banner, it doesn't matter what hour of the day or the night it is. And that red light goes off on our phones, on Colonel Jeff's and mine. If it's in the middle of the night, we will both get up and we will get dressed. Once we didn't get dressed. You know what? That's no good. That's no fun. Certainly wasn't fun for you or me. And we're the ones there at the studio in the middle of the night, taking these folks to Amazon. So let us know what you do. What you do. That's what you do. Go to your favorite bar, and as Mike has pointed out already, you go up. You don't know what the drink costs. You want to say, hey, what does a drink cost here? You go right up in the afternoon when no one else is there, and the bartender has his leg up on the speed rack, and he's reading the local paper, maybe even doing a crossword puzzle. And he'll tell you how much a drink is, and then you know what? That's what you can send to us if you use PayPal. That's what you want, folks. PayPal, what another great group, and we have a banner for them on our website as well. PayPal makes you feel like you're saving the world. And if you like our show here, and why wouldn't you, and you'd like to send us a few bucks to help out, and why wouldn't you? You can do it through PayPal, but we don't use words. I don't like to say, well, donate this, or pay what you like, or join the Platinum Committee. I always like to say, buy us some drinks. And that's the way to do it, because there are different levels, level 1 through 5, all the way up to, we're driving to Florida! I like that. That always makes me smile. And so look for the PayPal banner on our website, too, which, remember, is LarryMillerPodcast.com. Who's on the mountain? Tom Mix. With I'd like to shake hands with that saxophone player one day who makes that sound. By the way, I'd like to wash my hands right after it. But you know what? Amazon and PayPal are worth hooking up. And buy my book. That's right. Signed hardcover copies of my book, Spoiled Rotten America, are available now for sale at store.comedyfilmnerds.com. That's right. I love that book. Oh, it did great when it was out in sales. And we have a lot of copies that's where you get it, store.comedyfilmnerds.com. It's as funny as I could make it, and it talks about life and everything I think and everything I see. And you already know what that is. So you know what? Do yourself a favor and order a book. And that brings us to my favorite part of the show, the joke of the week. I'm sorry, one of the dogs just squeaked a squeaky toy here at our studio here at stately Miller Manor. And but we're going to leave it in the show because we feel the dog should be in the show. Plus, who wants to go back and re-record it? At any rate, the joke of the week is a wonderful way to live. I love passing along a joke to everyone there, to all you guys. And you know what? If it's a good one, you can pass it on too, to your friends and loved ones and your family. And I think you're going to like this one. Colonel Jeff and I both do. Fella walks into a bar one night. And boy, it's not the first bar he's been in that night. He's staggering and he weaves around and takes him a while, but he gets finally up to the bar, and he, holds his finger up in the air to signal for the bartender. The bartender comes over and he says to him, "I'd like a pint, please." And the bartender says, "Buddy, you've had too much. It was nearly impossible for you to get up to this bar when you walked in here. You know what? I can't serve you, and that's that. Come back another night and go ahead. Come on now, clear out." And he holds his hands up and says, "What? All right." And he weaves his way back out the front door the same way he came in. Well, a few minutes later, he comes in again in the side entrance, the side door. And he does the same thing, folks. He winds his way back up to the bar, and he belches a couple of times, and he has to hold on to a couple of pillars, and he finally gets back up to the bar, and the bartender comes over, and the guy says, "A pint, please." And the bartender says, "Buddy, you're worse than you were when you came in before. Now, I'm not going to serve you here tonight, okay? Come back another time, you can have all the fun you want. But clear out again." "Well, okay. Well, all right. And he does the same thing, walks out the side door now, the way he came in. Folks, a few minutes later, he comes in again through the back door. And same thing, he staggers into the back door, and he staggers up to the bar, and now he needs help just holding on to the bar. And the bartender comes over, and the guy looks him in the face, and he squints for a second, looks at the bartender and says, "Say, how many of these damn bars do you work in?" We like that joke, and I hope you do too. "Say, how many of these damn bars do you work in?" And you know what it reminded me, folks, also, and I was telling Colonel Jeff this, I remember the first time I came in and saw the side door in a bar. And this was when I was, just 18 years old. It was a bar, I think, in Massachusetts. And those used to be for women. And even, these weren't fancy bars, but, well, they had tile doorways. And this one I remember had tiles up and above and along the top of the door, and then darker tiles that said ladies' entrance. in there. And I thought, how do you like that? I remember hearing about those, and I had never seen one. Well, I was a little wet behind the ears anyway, but I hadn't seen one. There it is. That's when women used to want to go into a bar with their husbands or boyfriends or just a couple of their friends, I guess. And it was considered, and the colonel said, you mean it was a little unseemly for them to walk in the front door? The answer to that is, yeah, it was. It was not at all encouraged or allowed that a regular decent young woman would come in the front door of a saloon. No, that would mean if she walked in those swinging doors, that would mean they thought she was a swinging door too. But boy, oh boy, no, they had ladies' entrances for women who wanted to go to a bar. And I remember seeing that thing and saying, how do you like that? There's one right there. And I didn't even know what the back door was for. I guess in regular, bars all over America, that's where you'd bring the kegs of beer in, too. That's where the truck drivers could pull up in the back and get the kegs in. Boy, I remember those bars in New York, too, though. In New York City, they didn't have back doors for the kegs. And when you saw a bartender, he could be 60 years old, and his hair could be slicked down, but you could see those forearms had been picking up a lot of kegs of beer for a lot of years. And they were they used to have to carry them down these really narrow, curved, angled steps down to the basement to store there. And it wasn't in a freezer. I mean, it was just stored there on the concrete floor in the basement. And the concrete floors like that, and rooms like that weren't used in bars in New York. Well, every so often to kill someone, sure, but not to store anything else. That's what those bartenders had to do. And that's when you knew you didn't want to mess with someone who'd been carrying kegs up and down those steps for a bunch of years. He might have been older than you, but he could still take you. He could still teach you a good lesson. He could carry you like a keg of beer. So, you know what, though? That's the joke of the week. How many of these damn bars do you work in? But boy, oh boy, every so often, let us know, please. Send us a note on our website if you've seen a bar or you know of a bar or you accidentally run into a bar that still has a ladies' entrance. They're out there. I've seen more than a few, and I bet you have too. Please let us know where and when, and we'll make that announcement. And that brings us to my second favorite part of the show, the Poetry Corner. Well, apart from that bad cough that still hasn't gone away for that fella, but that string quartet is always good. Poetry also, like a joke, is so worthwhile. It's so moving when it's good. It really makes you think, how nice to hear words made like that. Words used together like that. And this is a terrific poem. It's called A Little While by Dante Gabriele Rossetti. And I've read from him before. He is, by the way, he was born in 1828 and died in 1882, born in London and lived there his whole life. He was the son of an Italian political refugee. And that was the exact time to be that, by the way. Most people don't know that. That's why a lot of operas are based on things like that. In those days, in the middle of the 19th century, that's before Italy was a republic. And for many centuries before that, it had been city-states, and it had been places with their own armies and with an aristocracy, and they were tough people. And they would fight each other, and the church had an army, and they would fight each other. Everybody fought everybody. So you know what? It was a tough time when Dante Rossetti's father was an Italian political refugee in the middle of the 19th century. That's why he was a refugee. You didn't want to get caught by a magistrate or a local sheriff, because those fellas in those days, boy, the one thing they were never called was merciful. So here's, though, a lovely poem. Rossetti was a fan of Keats, Shakespeare, Sir Walter Scott, and Edgar Allan Poe, speaking of the middle of the 19th century. And here's one of his called A Little While. A little while, a little love, the hour yet bears for thee and me, who have not drawn the veil to see if still our heaven be lit above. Thou, merrily, at the day's last sigh, hast felt thy soul prolong the tone, and I have heard the night wind cry, and deemed its speech mine own. A little while, a little love, the scattering autumn hoards for us, whose bower is not yet ruinous, nor quite unleaved our songless grove. Only across the shaken boughs we hear the flood tides seek the sea, and deep in both our hearts they rouse one wail for thee and me. A little while, a little love may yet be ours, who have not said the word. It makes our eyes afraid to know that each is thinking of. Not yet the end, be our lips dumb. In smiles a little season yet. I'll tell thee when the end is come, how we may best forget. Isn't that lovely? Again, a great artist's look at love and how it rises and how it falls, if that's what happens. Dante Gabriel Rossetti, A Little While, from the 19th century. Boy, I'm glad he did his stuff. And that brings us to the third favorite part of my show, MMM, Triple M, the Magic Movie Moment. Oh, folks, this is always a pleasure. Similarly, the Magic Movie Moment is very meaningful to me. It's like a great joke or a great poem. A magic movie moment is in a movie you know well, and in a movie maybe you think you've seen so many times, but it has a part in it, or a small section, or a part throughout the movie, or a way it was written, or a way it was shot, and it makes it magical to you. It may not even have anything to do directly with the plot, or it may, but it makes it magical to you. And this one has always been magical to me. It's from 1948, a movie called I Remember Mama. It's starring Irene Dunne, Philip Dorn, Barbara Bel Geddes, Oscar Homolka, Sir Cedric Hardwicke, Rudy Vallee, Edgar Bergen, so many others. And by the way, if you don't know these folks, and by the way, Edgar Bergen, a very popular star as a ventriloquist and an actor, and he was the father of someone else who was also a great star and very popular, Candice Bergen, and someone I've worked with, which is a funny way of how show business goes. I've worked with her several times, in fact, on Boston Legal, and I think the world of her. And in any case, you know what, folks? What's this movie about? How is it? Never mind Hollywood. This movie was made by God. It is so touching, set in turn-of-the-century San Francisco. The happiness, the heartbreak, all the cliches are true. The ones that say you'll laugh, you'll cry, you will. And there was one of the quotes from one of the reviews that I read. It said, it's a 5-handkerchief movie worth every tear. And, it's just terrific. Irene Dunne, I've always loved. What a great actress she was. You know what? And that's what MMM this week means for me. The two characters, the lead characters, Mama and Papa, are from Norway. They were born in Norway, but they came to America, well, when I said turn of the century, and that's around 1900. And they went to San Francisco, and they had all their children there. And, folks, what a face she has. She brings so much of all that love and all that understanding and all that heartbreak. And the triple M this week for me is every time you look at Irene Dunne's face in this movie, you'll be as touched as you've ever been. And folks, that is the truest thing I know how to say about it. There are other ways that an MMM means something from a movie, and it could be a battle scene. It could be so many other things that are really worthwhile. But everybody, when you look at Irene Dunne's face as Mama in this movie, you'll be just thrilled, and you listen to her, and you're moved by her, and you think, holy mackerel. And each time the great Barbara Bel Geddes, who was just a child then, narrates the movie, she says, yes, well, I saw this, and yes, well, I saw that, and I remember so many things, but I remember Mama. And you know what? You will too. By golly, I'm tearing up just talking about it. You will too. Please see it if you never have. I Remember Mama from 1948 with Irene Dunne, Philip Dorn, Barbara Bel Geddes, Oscar Homolka, Sir Cedric Hardwicke, Rudy Valley, Edgar Bergen, and so many more. And go see it. If you've never seen it, please see it. If you've seen it a long time ago, see it again. I Remember Mama. There is no better use for a magic movie moment than that. And one of the reasons I wanted to look up something, it came into my head about that name, I Remember Mama, is because we did just have Mother's Day. And you know what? Okay, some holidays are a little knuckleheaded, and sometimes we feel that we're manipulated into buying things or wanting things or getting things. But you know what? Mother's Day still, and it should, Mother's Day still makes us feel good remembering our own mothers. And by the way, getting things, if your children, getting things and your mom is still alive, getting something from Mom on Mother's Day. And this year, I got my wife 2 gifts for Mother's Day. Now, is it because I'm so affectionate and I'm so generous and I care so much? Well, no, it's not. It's, maybe in part. But what happened was I got her, my chiropractor did this before, in the middle of a session when he's holding my neck in his hands on a table there. He's supposed to do that, right? But he's great. He's a great chiropractor. And you know what? He originally told me about the Apple Watch that I got my wife, I think on our anniversary. And I went to a Best Buy store out here near us on the mainland, and I got her Apple Watch, and she loved it. She was so grateful. She said, what a nice gift. And I was, I'm thrilled at that. That's what you want. As a husband, you want a couple of good points for having gotten a good gift. And just a few days ago, I was back at the chiropractor. I love the guy. We're friends, been friends for a long time. And I told him it was the day before Mother's Day. And I said to him, you know what? No, I haven't gotten anything yet. He asked me. And I said, I haven't gotten anything yet for her. And I was, after this session with you, I was going to zip over, and I had this place recommended to me called Bella Cures, which is out near where we live here. And it's manicures and pedicures, or as they say, mani-pedi. I don't say that. I don't know. I can barely say manicure and pedicure. But you know what? It's a nice place, too. It's not so big, but it's a fancy place, and my wife likes it, and I was going to get her some gift certificates for that. She likes it. And but my friend, Dr. Neil, the chiropractor, said, you know what, I have an idea for you. Because he gave me that last one for the Apple Watch. He said, I've got another idea for you. He said, Apple TV. I bet you can go to the same store, the same Best Buy where you got the other one. And I said, well, how's that? What is that? And he explained, it's not a TV, but it plugs right into your TV. And he said, this is terrific. And it has, you can speak into the little handpiece there. And you can just say, well, Larry Miller movies, everything Larry Miller is in it. It'll just bring them up. They have thousands, tens of thousands, everything you'd want. Well, that's certainly something I'd want, but you can do anything. You could say great battle movies in the 18th century. Anything, any category you make, and they'll show you 100 of them right there. And he suggested that. I said, you know what? I think you've done it again. Well, when he's holding your neck, what are you going to say? Hey, please just shut up and let me rest? But he's a great guy, and we finished up, had a great session, and I washed up and had some free peanuts they have there sitting on the counter. I like everyone in his office. And I got back in my car, and it's my fancy new car, by the way, my Audi 6. I know it's supposed to be Audi. I know that. But that feels too official. Feels like I'm trying to be too vain. But anyway, I got back in my car, and I headed back to my house, which is very near the Best Buy that I went to, where I got the Apple Watch. By the way, I'm saying these things, names of these places like Bella Cure's and Best Buy. They're not sponsors, but they do a terrific job. And I was going to stop at Bella Cure's this time, but I didn't. I went right to the Best Buy and got her. They had an Apple TV right there with her name on it. Well, that would be weird, wouldn't it, if it ever really had your name on something? But they put it in a bag. They don't have gift wrapping. And it was funny. The young salesman was about 18 or 19, and he was pretty tired. He was on a 3-shift working session there. 3 shifts in a row. And he was ready to pass out. I said, "You are tired." He said, "Yeah, it's the 3rd shift in a row." And I said, "You got to go home and go to sleep." He said, "Yeah." Now this was a Saturday, remember, about at this point it's 4:30 or so, or 4:45. And he's a young man. He's not married. Saturday night is coming up. Maybe he wants to go out and meet a nice young woman. But boy, unless she's really tired too, he's going to have to meet someone better. He needs a night's sleep. And he took care of me there. He got me the cord also that hooks up. And we made a nice bag out of it. And I said, and I wrote a nice card to her and put it in there. And we took it home. And the point is, I know that she was downstairs in her office in our house. And she was sort of she laid herself down on her couch in there. She was pretty tired too. And I was going to take her out for a nice bite. And she said, I'm too tired. I just want to lie down here and close my eyes. And I walked in also with the bag. I said, "Honey, you know what? It's not officially Mother's Day yet. It's the night before, but you might like to see this now. And in fact, you might want to use it now. And I hope you like it." And I gave it to her. She was very sweet. She said something awfully loving. And she said, "You know what? I have to tell you, I love you very much for getting this." But she said, I'm not crazy about Apple TV. I'm not crazy about how they bring you the movies you want to ask for, the TV shows. And she said, "Do you mind?" I said, "Of course not. Good Lord, no." And well, let's just put it back in the bag there, and we'll get it back to Best Buy and get something else. And you know what? It reminded me, though, that what did we used to get for our mothers? What do you get for yours now? What do your kids get for you? Do we do anything official anymore? I remembered for my mom, every single year, my sister and I did the same thing. Every single year for Mother's Day, we would wake her up in the morning on Sunday morning, which right away, by the way, is stupid. You know, if you're a kid, you're going to wake up at 7 o'clock because you're a kid. Now, Mom is asleep in bed there with Dad, and you want to say, the poor woman's finally asleep. Leave her alone. Don't. But we didn't because we're kids. So we went in there and said, Mom, wake up. Mom, wake up. She wouldn't wake up because thank God she's sleeping finally. But finally, so we'd shake her, hold her by the arm and shake her. Mom. And you can imagine every year, we did it every year, and she woke up every year just well, who's sick? What happened? Is someone dead? It was just like a permanent mother's way of thinking. And, we'd say, no, Mom, no, today's Mother's Day, and we want to let you know this year we cook for you. That's what we're going to do. You don't have to cook at all. We're going to cook the whole day for you. That was our kids. That was our gift every single year. We cook for you today, 3 meals, and you don't ever have to go in. You can stay in bed the whole day. And I remember same thing. Every year she'd say, oh, please don't. No, honey, no, please. Oh, no, because she said, every year it takes me the whole next year to clean the kitchen after you go in there. And, of course, as kids, you don't hear that anyway. You don't hear what... You just woke the woman up at 7:05 when she was sleeping. So we'd say, okay, remember, rules are you can't leave. You can't come into the kitchen. Don't worry about anything. Well, don't worry about anything. I mean, she says, has to sit there for the next 9 hours hearing pots and pans falling and, giant explosions from the stove, giving gas explosions coming into the living room there from the kitchen, and then I'd run and go, we're okay, we're still okay, and she'd, oh my God, then hours later you bring her finally a muddy cup of coffee. Now Dad is still sleeping, by the way, 7:05, 8:05, 9:05. He doesn't have to work that day, so he's not getting up, and he was right for it. And we would cook, make some eggs and butter some toast. But we weren't good butterers, and, they'd get that off a stick where you pound it. You got to pound the butter. It's like you need an axe to soften it up. And so we'd still bring her in, and then every year that we'd cook all day for her. And it wasn't good food, and it was a giant mess. And, yeah, we're lucky we didn't kill anyone. But... of course, it's exactly right. It took her the entire next year to clean the kitchen. And that was our Mother's Day gift for her. That was done with, affection, with sweetness, with love. And so we did that for Mom. And that was our mom's gift to her. And you know what? There were things we made in elementary school. Colonel Jeff and I were talking about this, remembering. We always made cards for Mother's Day in elementary school. I don't know about you guys, that cards, it was crayon and construction paper. Those were the cards. And you'd fold it over, and you'd draw. Well, it was all the same thing. It doesn't matter what you draw. It's not a kid kissing your mother. You're drawing battle scenes, because that's what you've been seeing on TV, on shows like Combat. So I was pretty good at drawing machine guns with the machine gun belts going in. And it was pretty good at drawing German helmets there, because you can still see those. Not hard to draw those. And the bullets coming out at airplanes. And then, of course, Happy Mother's Day. And we made gifts in elementary school for Mom. That was the same thing. It was like a whole section of elementary school in 2nd or 3rd grade. And the gifts were always made out of Maxwell House coffee cans, whatever. And then they were not new, and they were not clean. So you could make a drum out of it with some kind of rubber you could stretch over it and then puncture into the can and tie it down there with some leather. We could make these things. We already knew how to read and write, so that's sort of the end of elementary school anyway. And we made those things, and whatever we did make, by the way, there was a bunch of things. But whatever it was, it needed Elmer's glue. I remember that. It had to be Elmer's glue because that's what we all had. That's what they had in elementary school. They had tubs of it, or we would get as school supplies the little squeeze bottles there with the orange top. Elmer's glue. I don't want it anymore. It was always, messy, and whatever we made with it was lumpy, sticky, white, just not attractive. And Colonel Jeff and I both remembered we also made ashtrays. I don't know about you guys, but that was still when ashtrays were a terrific thing to make. That, why? Why not? Why not? And I remember I made her an ashtray once for Mother's Day out of matchsticks, which is, if you think of it, very stupid. It's two terrible ideas in a row. But in those days, it was, again, seen as very affectionate. Today, you'd get arrested. What is that? An ashtray. An ashtray? You have the right to remain silent. And they would arrest everybody, the teacher, the principal, And, well, that was Mother's Day. And for Father's Day, I remember, I would get my dad the same thing every single year. Old Spice. I'm not exactly sure. I love those commercials. The sailor was always getting off the ship, whistling. He always whistled that. He was a better whistler than that. But he got off the ship and he swung his bag over his shoulder and a big smile, and he's got the sailor's cap on, goes right to the brothel every time, I think. Well, he's been at sea for 8 months on a whaling ship, so what are you going to do? Well, that's what you're going to do. But I got my dad every year Old Spice. Went to Sam Brill's, Mr. Brill's pharmacy, the drugstore there, and you know what? Every year got him, and he was always, God bless him, they were good parents. We loved them very much, and Dad would always be happy when he opened it up that I got him more Old Spice. Look at that. Cologne, whatever I got him, it was always in one of those bottles. And it was always shaving, afterwards, shaving lotion. And once I went crazy and got him soap on a rope. That was like madness that year for Father's Day. It was still Old Spice, but they make a soap on a rope. And you know what, though? And then one year, I remember, I got him, Breslau's father, my friend Breslau's father had a furniture store in Queens, in New York, on Long Island. And Bruce's father got me an easy chair to give to my dad. And he was very sweet. It was about $60 or $65. And that was at the price that he paid for it. He was very nice about it, and he said, "Sure, we'll get you one." And remember, it was delivered to the house, and we had that a long time. I mean, I guess I got it for him when I was 14 or 15, but it was there through high school. It was there through college. I'd come back. It was still there. It wasn't a fancy easy chair. It wasn't like, the Lazy Boys I love to mention, but this was, you know what? It held up. And it could rock back, and we had it there quite a while, that easy chair. But, of course, the next year, Old Spice. It was back to Old Spice. And, well, that's same thing. I don't see anything wrong in that. And except, do kids do anything like that again or anymore? And I don't know. The only things I ever got for Father's Day when my kids were little were I would get a tie or a belt, which, if you think about it, makes them the best gifts in the world because they actually are easy for, two young boys to get or two young girls too. Plus, it sounds about right for Dad. How about a tie? Well, I've got 700 ties, but that's fine. It's great. And then I'd wear it that day. I'd put it on that day, so they could see. And the next time I needed a real tie to put on a dress shirt, I'd wear that tie. And so, it meant a lot. So I'm just curious about that. Do your kids get their mom anything anymore? Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't cook. Maybe they don't get Dad well, an Easy Cheer or Old Spice. I'd like to know, by the way, what your kids do for Mother's Day or Father's Day. And please send us that on our website so we can all know the same things, because we like that anyway. We know that Homer is Homer and Pluto is a planet. And so remember, as always, if you walked out of bed today and had a job to go to and a home to come back to and someone there who cares about you folks, the game's over and you've won. So be well and wear your new tie and your new belt. And we'll see you here next time.